How do you tell your son that the baby everyone is celebrating is not his and that his wife tried to trap you with your own estate? The night my daughter-in-law started screaming in the delivery room, my plan was already in motion. By the time she screamed even louder afterward, the papers were signed, the tests were in, and their baby no longer had a claim to a single cent of my estate. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the hype button, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? I stood at my kitchen counter, pouring coffee into the same chipped mug I had used for 15 years. My bungalow was small, paid off, nothing fancy. The pension from my police days covered utilities. The security firm job paid enough for the rest. I had savings. Not millions, but enough to matter. Enough that people started looking at me differently once they knew about it. My phone buzzed. Colin, my son. Hey, Dad, you free tonight? Natalie wants to do an early baby celebration. She picked this nice place downtown, Italian. Sounds good, I said, though something in my chest tightened. Celebrations with Natalie always came with a price tag, usually mine. Great, 7 o'clock? He hung up before I could say anything else. Colin used to call me just to talk. Now every call had a purpose, and that purpose usually involved Natalie's plans. The security firm office was all open floor plan and cheap fluorescent lights. I sat at my desk going through incident reports. 2 of the younger guards stood by the coffee machine laughing. Hey, Reid, Tyler called over. You finished that risk assessment? Done. Sent it to the boss an hour ago. Jake snorted. Man, you're like the office, Grandpa. Just doing paperwork and going home? I did not respond. I had spent 20 years as a police investigator before taking early retirement. I knew what real security looked like. Tyler came over, leaning on my desk. You ever actually do anything exciting, old man? I did my job, I said evenly. That's all that mattered. He laughed and walked away. I turned back to my computer. Their manager had made 3 mistakes in the risk log. I fixed them quietly without comment. My phone buzzed. A text from Colin. Restaurant is called Bellissimo. Dress nice. Natalie's excited. Bellissimo was exactly the kind of place Natalie loved. White tablecloths, dim lighting, waiters in vests. I arrived 5 minutes early and found them already seated. Natalie waved me over, her smile bright. Reid, there you are. I sat down, and Natalie immediately pushed her phone across the table. Look, new ultrasound pictures? Isn't he perfect? I looked at the grainy image. Looks healthy. He's more than healthy. He's going to be brilliant. The waiter appeared. Natalie ordered for all of us without asking what I wanted. So, Dad, Colin said, we wanted to talk about estate planning, making sure things are clear. Natalie nodded. Because you don't need much, right? You're retired, you have your pension, you have that little job. But a baby, Reid, babies are expensive. We just want to make sure he's taken care of. I'll take care of the bill, of course, she said loudly. Like always, since it's for his grandchild. I saw the couple at the next table glance over. My face felt hot. Natalie, I said quietly, I'm happy to pay for my own meal. Oh, don't be silly. She patted my hand like I was a child. You'll want to save your money for making sure your estate goes to the right people. What she means is, Colin added, we thought it would be good if you made it official, that everything goes to the baby. Your only grandson, Natalie added, your legacy. I haven't made any decisions about my estate yet, I said carefully. Natalie's smile tightened. Well, you're not getting any younger, Reid. You also don't need that much anymore. You live in that little house, drive that old car. You don't travel, you don't spend. Wouldn't it be better to know it's going to your grandson? Colin looked down, saying nothing. The food arrived. Natalie talked about nursery colors and baby names. Colin picked at his steak, never meeting my eyes. When the bill came, Natalie handed it to me. You've got this, right? I pulled out my wallet and paid. As we stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A calendar reminder. Marilyn Quinn, estate consult. Tomorrow 2 p.m. Looking at Natalie's triumphant smile, it felt like the most important appointment of my life. Everything okay, Dad? Colin asked. Fine. Just a reminder about something I need to take care of. Natalie beamed. See? You're already getting organized. I walked to my car alone. Tomorrow I would talk to Marilyn. Tomorrow things would start to make sense. I pulled up to Colin and Natalie's townhouse on Saturday afternoon, a small gift bag on the passenger seat. Inside was a stuffed bear, soft and blue. Natalie opened the door, phone in hand, barely looking up. "Oh, Reid, come in. Colin's in the garage. I'm on a call." The inside was immaculate. White furniture, glass tables, framed art. Everything coordinated. It looked like a showroom, not a home. I found Colin in the garage, surrounded by baby furniture boxes. He looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Hey, Dad. Brought something for the baby." I held up the bag. He smiled tiredly. "Thanks. Need help?" "Nah, I got it. Natalie wants everything set up before the baby comes." He set down the screwdriver. "Can you come inside? Natalie wanted to talk to you." My stomach tightened. I followed him back inside. Natalie was at the dining table with a laptop and printed pages. "Reid, perfect timing. I've been doing some research." She slid a paper across the table. "This is a letter of intent. You state your wishes clearly so there's no confusion later." I picked it up. A template filled in with my name. At the bottom, a space for my signature. "This says I intend to leave everything to your child." "Right. Because that's the plan. This just makes it official." "I didn't say it was the plan." Her smile faltered. "Reid, don't be difficult. This is for your grandson. You're not going to leave your money to strangers, are you?" "I'm not going to sign something I haven't thought through." "You're old. You don't need it, and we do. It's simple math." She crossed her arms. "Unless you're selfish." Colin shifted uncomfortably. "Natalie, maybe give him time." "Why? Your father has savings. We have a baby coming. Someone needs to be practical." I stood up, setting the paper back. "I'm not signing this today." "Fine." Her voice was ice, but people remember who was there for them and who wasn't. I walked toward the door. As I passed the mantel, something caught my eye, a framed photo. Natalie in a white sundress on a beach with coworkers. Palm trees, blue water, drinks in hand. In the corner of the frame, a small white sticker with a date, 9 months ago, early April. The baby was due in early January. Conception would have been around April. Colin had been on a long logistics trip in April, 3 weeks away. He had not been home when this photo was taken. Natalie was standing next to a tall man with dark hair, his arm around her shoulders. Casual, but familiar. "You leaving already?" Natalie's voice came from behind me. "Yeah, I have things to do." "Think about what I said, Reid." Back in my home office, I pulled out an old notebook. I opened to a blank page and wrote, "Baby due, early January, conception window, early to mid-April, corporate retreat photo, April, Colin's logistics trip." April, 3 weeks away, I opened my laptop and found the texts. Colin had left April 8th, returned April 29th. 3 weeks, away from Natalie. I wrote down the dates, then closed the notebook. I was not ready to make assumptions, but I was going to pay attention now. Sunday afternoon, I walked through the neighborhood park. I sat on a bench near the pond, watching ducks. "Hi, Mr. Reid." Noah, the kid from 2 houses down, ran toward me. He was 10, gap-toothed. "Hey, Noah." He sat next to me. "Are you excited about the baby? Are you going to teach him to fish?" I smiled. "Maybe." "You should. My grandpa taught me knots. He said it was important to learn stuff from your grandpa." His mom reached us. "Noah, don't bother Mr. Reid. Time to go." "Bye, Mr. Reid. Good luck with the baby." I watched them walk away. Good luck with the baby. Like it was a gamble. Natalie kept calling it their baby. And she kept saying, "Your grandson" to me. Your legacy. Your responsibility. But what if it was not? What if the baby was not Colin's? What if I was not actually going to be a grandfather? I stood up. I had no proof, just a photo and dates. But I had learned to trust my instincts. Inside my garage, I opened the notebook again, staring at the dates. I circled them, then wrote 3 words underneath. DNA, timing, records. Tomorrow, I had an appointment with Marilyn Quinn, and I was going to ask her some very specific questions. The security firm was hosting a client appreciation event at Bellissimo, the same restaurant where Natalie had humiliated me 2 weeks earlier. I had not wanted to go, but my boss insisted. "Good for team morale, Reid. Plus, some of these clients specifically asked about you. They trust you." So I went, wearing my one good suit, the navy one I saved for weddings and funerals. The restaurant had set up a private area in the back, tables arranged in a U shape, a small bar in the corner. Clients mingled with security staff, everyone holding wine glasses and making small talk. I stayed near the edge, watching. This was not my scene, never had been. "Dad!" I turned. Colin was walking toward me, Natalie beside him. She was dressed in a black cocktail dress, her hand resting on her rounded belly. Colin had mentioned they might stop by, something about wanting to meet my boss and see where I worked. Hey son, didn't think you'd make it. Natalie wanted to come. She's curious about your work. Natalie smiled, looking around the room. I wanted to see what the famous security firm looks like. Colin talks about it sometimes. I doubted that. Colin barely knew what I did day to day. But I did not argue. My boss, Frank, spotted us and came over. Reid, are these your family? My son Colin and his wife Natalie. Frank shook their hands enthusiastically. Reid's one of our best. Real steady, thorough. We're lucky to have him. Natalie's smile widened. Oh, that's so sweet. Reid's always been very reliable. Just goes to work, does his job, goes home. Very simple. I caught the edge in her voice, but Frank did not seem to notice. Well, simple is good in security. No drama, just solid work. He clapped me on the shoulder. Anyway, help yourselves to drinks and food. Good to meet you both. He walked away, and Natalie immediately scanned the room, her eyes assessing everyone. So, this is it? This is what you do all day? More or less. Huh? She sipped her sparkling water. Colin, let's get some food. I'm starving. We moved to the buffet table. Natalie loaded a plate while talking loudly about the baby, about nursery furniture, about how expensive everything was. A few of my coworkers glanced over, and I saw Tyler and Jake smirking near the bar. We sat at one of the tables. Natalie dominated the conversation, asking my coworkers about their jobs, their families, their plans. She was charming when she wanted to be, laughing at jokes, remembering names. But every few minutes, she would turn the conversation back to me. Reid's been such a help with the baby, she said to one of the older guards. Well, he's going to be, once he figures out his estate planning. The guard looked confused. Estate planning? Oh, you know, making sure everything goes to the right people. His grandson, mostly. Since Reid's not getting any younger, and he doesn't really need much anymore. Right, Reid? I set down my fork. That's not something we need to discuss here. Why not? It's just practical. She turned back to the guard. I mean, he lives in this tiny house, drives an old car, works this little job. No offense, but it's not like he's building an empire. The money's just sitting there, and we have a baby coming. It makes sense, doesn't it? The guard shifted uncomfortably. I don't really know about that kind of thing. Tyler wandered over, drink in hand. What are we talking about? Estate planning, Natalie said brightly. Boring stuff, but important. Reid's estate? Tyler laughed. No offense, man, but what estate? You're like the night watchman who got lucky with a pension. Natalie laughed too, loud and easy. Exactly. That's what I keep saying. The real future money is in their baby. In the next generation, Reid's just the bridge, you know? The grandparent who helps out and then steps back. I felt heat rising in my chest, but I kept my face neutral. Colin was looking down at his plate, saying nothing. Tyler leaned against the table. Man, I can't even think about estate planning. I'm just trying to pay rent. Well, that's why it's so important for older people to think ahead, Natalie said, looking directly at me. So they don't leave a mess. So they actually do something useful. The table had gone quiet. My coworkers were looking at their plates, at their drinks, anywhere but at me. I saw pity in some of their faces, awkwardness in others. Natalie had just called me useless in front of everyone I worked with, and Colin sat there saying nothing. I stood up, setting my napkin on the table. Excuse me. I walked to the bathroom, past the bar, past the smiling clients. In the bathroom, I stood at the sink, hands gripping the cold porcelain, looking at my reflection in the mirror. My face was flushed, my jaw tight. I looked old, tired, like someone who had already given up, but I had not given up. Not yet. I splashed cold water on my face, dried it with a paper towel, and walked back out. Natalie and Colin were getting ready to leave. She was saying goodbye to Frank, all charm and smiles again. Colin was holding her coat. There you are, Natalie said when she saw me. We're heading out. Colin has an early meeting tomorrow. Take care, Dad, Colin said quietly. I watched them walk out together, Natalie's hand on Colin's arm, her laugh echoing back through the restaurant. Frank came over, patting me on the shoulder again. Nice family, Reid. You must be excited about the grandbaby. Yeah, I said. Excited. I left the event early, driving home through empty streets. The night was cold, the sky clear and full of stars. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a long time, engine off, just thinking. In that moment, under those warm restaurant lights and fake laughs, something had clicked inside me. Not anger, not rage, just cold, clear certainty. I was dealing with a manipulator, someone who would humiliate me publicly, who would use my own son as a weapon, who would take everything I had worked for and call it her right. And I was not going to let it happen. I went inside, straight to my office. I pulled out the old case file I had kept from my police days, a paternity dispute from 15 years ago. A man who thought he was raising his son, only to find out after years of support that the child was not his. The mother had lied, had trapped him, had taken his money and his time and left him with nothing but anger and regret. The case had been messy, ugly, full of lawyers and accusations. But in the end, the truth had mattered. Biology had mattered. The law had sided with facts, not feelings. I read through the file, page by page, remembering how it had unfolded, how the timing had been the first clue, how the paternity test had changed everything, how the estate and custody arrangements had fallen apart once the truth came out. I opened my notebook and wrote 3 words on a new page: DNA, medical records, trust structure. Then I pulled up Marilyn Quinn's contact on my phone and sent a text. Need to talk soon. Estate questions? Urgent. Her response came 2 minutes later. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office. I put the phone down and leaned back in my chair, looking around my small office. 20 years of investigation work had taught me one thing above all else. Truth and timing could change everything, especially when names and money met. And I had just decided to find the truth, no matter what it cost me. Marilyn Quinn's office was in a low brick building near the courthouse, the kind of place that had been there for decades. The sign outside said Quinn Family Law in simple black letters. I had known Marilyn since my police days, when I had worked cases that needed legal consultation. She was sharp, precise, and most importantly, she did not waste time on emotions when facts mattered more. The waiting room was small, just a few chairs and a table with old magazines. A receptionist looked up when I entered, smiled, and told me Marilyn would be with me in a moment. I sat down, hands folded, trying to organize my thoughts. 2 minutes later, Marilyn opened her office door. She was 58, gray hair pulled back in a bun, wearing a dark blue suit. She looked the same as she had 10 years ago. "Reid, good to see you. Come in." Her office was all business. Bookshelves full of legal texts, a large desk covered in files and papers, 2 chairs facing each other. She gestured for me to sit and closed the door. "So," she said, settling into her chair, "you said estate questions. What's going on?" I told her everything. The dinner at Bellissimo, the letter of intent Natalie had tried to make me sign, the photo with the date, Colin's travel timeline, the way they treated me, like I was already obligated to hand over everything I had. Marilyn listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me. "First question," she said. "Do you want to leave your estate to this baby?" "I don't know if it's actually Colin's baby." "That's not what I asked. If it is his baby, do you want to leave your estate to him or her?" I thought about it. Maybe, if Colin steps up, if he stops letting Natalie control everything, but I'm not going to be blackmailed into it. Good, because you don't have to leave your estate to anyone you don't want to. It's your money, your decision. She flipped through her notes. Now, about the paternity question. You have suspicions based on timing, but no proof. Right. And you're not comfortable bringing it up directly with Colin or Natalie. If I'm wrong, I destroy my relationship with my son. If I'm right, I destroy it anyway. Marilyn nodded. So you want a structure that protects you either way? Yes. She pulled out a thick folder from her desk drawer, flipping through documents. There are a few options. The cleanest is a living trust with specific conditions. You transfer your assets into the trust while you're alive, and you set the rules for who inherits and under what circumstances. What kind of conditions? In your case, you could specify that only confirmed biological descendants inherit, or you could require a paternity test before any distribution, or you could make it conditional on other factors, like the relationship between you and the heir, or evidence of financial responsibility. I leaned forward. Can I make it so that if the baby is not Colin's, neither Natalie nor the baby gets anything? Absolutely. The trust can state that only biological descendants of your son Colin inherit. If the child is not biologically related to Colin, the child is not your biological grandchild, and therefore not covered by the trust. What if they try to challenge it? They can try, but trusts are hard to challenge if they're properly drafted. As long as you're of sound mind when you create it, and as long as the conditions are legal and clearly stated, it stands. She tapped her pen on the desk. The key is documentation. If you have evidence that raises reasonable doubt about paternity, you can include a provision requiring a paternity test. If they refuse the test, they forfeit the inheritance. And if they take the test and it proves the baby is not Colin's, then the terms of the trust apply. The baby is not a biological heir, so the inheritance goes to whoever you designate as a backup. A charity, a different relative, even back to Colin himself if you want. I sat back, processing this. It was exactly what I needed. A structure that protected me without requiring me to accuse anyone directly. The truth would decide everything, not my suspicions. How long does it take to set this up? For a basic trust with standard conditions, a few weeks. But given your timeline, we can expedite it. I can have a draft ready in a few days, and we can finalize it within 2 weeks if you're available to sign. I'm available. Marilyn made more notes, then looked up at me. Reid, I need to ask you something. What if the baby is Colin's? What if your suspicions are wrong? Then I'll be happy to leave my estate to my grandchild, through the trust, with conditions that make sure Natalie doesn't just take it and run. And if Colin asks why you're doing this, I'll tell him I'm protecting my estate from anyone who might try to manipulate him, which is true either way. She nodded, satisfied. All right, let's get started. I'll need information about your assets, current beneficiaries, and exactly what conditions you want to include. We spent the next 2 hours going over everything. My savings accounts, my pension, the house, the small investment portfolio I had built over the years. Marilyn took notes, asked questions, explained how each asset would be handled under the trust. By the time we finished, my head was spinning with legal terms and clauses. But I understood the basics. The trust would give me control, would protect my estate, and would make sure that biology and truth, not pressure or manipulation, decided the future. One more thing, Marilyn said as I stood to leave. You mentioned medical records and timing. If you want to gather evidence to support the paternity question, there are legal ways to do it. Hospital records, lab-type information, documented timelines. I'm not saying you should, but if you do, make sure you're not violating any privacy laws. I was a cop for 20 years. I know how to gather evidence legally. Good, because if this goes to court, everything has to be clean. No stolen documents, no hacked emails, nothing that could be thrown out or used against you. I shook her hand. Thanks, Marilyn. Call me when you're ready to review the draft. And Reid, be careful. People get ugly when money is involved. I drove to the courthouse after leaving Marilyn's office. The records office was in the basement, a maze of filing cabinets and computers manned by clerks who looked like they had been there since the building opened. I signed in at the desk and asked to review public records related to paternity and inheritance cases. The clerk, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain, gave me a skeptical look. You doing research? Something like that. She led me to a computer terminal and showed me how to search the database. Most recent cases are digitized. Older stuff is still in files. Let me know if you need help. I spent the next hour reading case summaries, looking for patterns, precedents. What I found confirmed what Marilyn had told me. Paternity tests had become standard in disputed inheritance cases. Courts routinely ordered them when there was reasonable doubt. And when tests proved a child was not biologically related to the supposed father, inheritance claims fell apart fast. One case stood out. A grandmother had left her estate to the biological grandchildren of her son. Years later, after her passing, one of the grandchildren was proven through DNA testing not to be related to the son. The child's mother sued to keep the inheritance, arguing that the grandmother had never questioned the relationship, but the court ruled in favor of the trust language. Biological grandchild meant biological grandchild, regardless of what anyone believed at the time. I made notes, taking photos of relevant case numbers with my phone. This was ammunition. If Natalie tried to challenge my trust, I had precedent on my side. I left the courthouse and drove to a coffee shop nearby, a small place with worn tables and local art on the walls. I ordered black coffee and sat in the corner, pulling out my laptop. I created a new folder, labeled it simply Family Plan, and started organizing everything. Timeline documents, Colin's travel records from April, the photo with the retreat date, case summaries from the courthouse, Marilyn's notes on trust structure. I did not have proof yet, but I had a pattern, and in investigations, patterns were where truth started to emerge. My phone buzzed. A text from Colin. Natalie has a prenatal appointment tomorrow at 2. Want to come? I stared at the message. A prenatal appointment. With medical records, lab-type information, dates, and timelines documented by professionals. An opportunity to observe, to listen, to gather information without asking obvious questions. I texted back. Sure. Where? He sent me the address. City General Hospital, Women's Health Center, 3rd floor. I finished my coffee and closed the laptop, thinking. Tomorrow, I would watch and listen. I would see how Natalie acted when she thought she was in control, I would pay attention to what the doctor said, what they asked, what they documented, and I would take one step closer to the truth. The prenatal clinic waiting room was beige and sterile, with motivational posters on the walls showing happy families and healthy babies. I sat in a plastic chair near the window, watching pregnant women come and go with their partners. Everyone looked excited, nervous, normal. Natalie and Colin were late. I had arrived 10 minutes early, as always, and now I sat there checking my phone every few minutes, wondering if they had forgotten I was coming. Finally, they walked in. Natalie was talking loudly on her phone, gesturing with one hand while the other rested on her belly. Colin trailed behind her, carrying her purse and a water bottle. He looked exhausted. "No, I told you the report needs to be done by Friday," Natalie was saying into her phone. "I don't care if Derek is out this week. Find someone else to cover his section." She paused, listening. "Fine, just get it done." She hung up and finally noticed me. "Oh, Reid, you made it." "Said I would." "Right," she turned to Colin. "Go check us in. I need to sit down." Colin went to the reception desk while Natalie lowered herself into the chair next to mine, sighing dramatically. "This baby is so heavy. I swear he's going to come early." "How early?" "I don't know. A week or two, maybe. The doctor said everything looks good, though." She pulled out her phone again, scrolling through messages. "God, work is such a nightmare right now. Derek's been useless since he got back from his trip last month." I kept my face neutral. "Derek?" "My coworker. The one who was supposed to finish the training report. He's been flaking on everything lately." She rolled her eyes. Men are so unreliable. Colin came back with a clipboard and forms. "They said it'll be about 15 minutes. 15 minutes? I have a meeting at 3:30. Natalie grabbed the clipboard, scanning the forms. "Reid, do you have a pen?" I handed her one. She filled out the forms quickly, barely reading them, then handed the clipboard back to Colin. "Turn that in, and get me some water from the cooler." Colin did as he was told. I watched him go, wondering when he had stopped being my son and started being Natalie's assistant. "So," Natalie said, turning to me, "have you talked to your lawyer yet?" "About what?" "About your estate. You said you were getting your paperwork in order. I assume that means you've made some decisions." "I'm working on it." "Working on it? Reid, the baby's coming in a few weeks. You can't just keep putting this off." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I know you think I'm pushy, but I'm trying to help you. You don't want to leave things messy. You don't want Colin to have to deal with lawyers and courts after you're gone. Just make it simple. Everything to the baby. That's what grandparents do." "I'll handle my estate the way I think is right." "The way you think is right? You mean the way you think is fair? Because let me tell you something, Reid. Fair is making sure your grandson is taken care of. Fair is recognizing that you've had your life, and now it's time to think about his. Anything else is just selfish." Colin returned with the water before I could respond. Natalie took it without thanking him and went back to her phone. A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Natalie Traynor?" We all stood. The nurse smiled at us. "All three of you coming back?" "Yes," Natalie said firmly. "Reid's the grandfather. He should see how well the baby's doing." We followed the nurse down a hallway to an exam room. It was small, with an exam table, a stool, and a rolling ultrasound machine in the corner. Posters about fetal development covered the walls. "Dr. Alvarez will be in shortly," the nurse said. "She's running a few minutes behind." Natalie climbed onto the exam table, adjusting her dress. Colin stood beside her, holding her hand. I stayed near the door, feeling like an intruder. "So exciting," Natalie said, looking at me. "You're going to see your grandson on the screen. Maybe we'll find out how much he weighs. The doctor said he's measuring big." "That's good," I said, because I did not know what else to say. Dr. Alvarez entered a few minutes later. She was mid-40s, professional, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She reviewed the chart the nurse had left, then looked up at Natalie. "How are you feeling?" "Tired. Huge. Ready for this to be over." "That's normal for this stage. Let's take a look and see how everything's progressing." She turned on the ultrasound machine and squeezed gel onto Natalie's belly, then pressed the transducer against her skin. The screen flickered to life, showing the grainy black and white image of the baby. I could make out the head, the body, tiny limbs moving slightly. "There he is," Dr. Alvarez said. "Looks good. Heart rate is strong. Position is good. Everything is developing right on track." "When do you think he'll come?" Natalie asked. "Based on your last menstrual period and the measurements, I'd say you're right on schedule for early January. Could be a few days earlier or later, but that's normal variation." Natalie smiled, squeezing Colin's hand. "See? Early January, just like we calculated." Dr. Alvarez made notes on her tablet, then looked at the chart again. I do want to double-check a few things in your history. You mentioned at your first visit that your last period was in early April, correct? Right. April 4th. And there were no other periods before that? No spotting or irregularities? No. Why? Just making sure our dates line up. Sometimes women mistake implantation bleeding for a light period, and it can affect our calculations. She looked at the screen again, taking measurements. But based on the ultrasound, the baby's size is consistent with an early April conception, so we're good. I watched Natalie's face. She looked relaxed, confident. Colin looked proud. Neither of them seemed concerned about the questions. Dr. Alvarez finished the measurements and printed out a few images, handing them to Natalie. Everything looks perfect. I'll see you again in 2 weeks, and we'll start talking about delivery plans. Can we schedule the induction now? Natalie asked. I want to have everything planned out. We usually wait until 39 weeks to schedule an induction, unless there's a medical reason to do it earlier, but we can discuss it at your next appointment. After the appointment, we walked back to the parking lot together. Natalie was in a good mood, talking about nursery furniture and baby names. Colin walked beside her, carrying her purse again. I trailed behind, thinking about what Dr. Alvarez had said. Early April conception, early January delivery. The dates matched what Natalie had told them. But I knew Colin had been away for most of April, which meant either the dates were wrong or someone else had been there when Colin was not. Reid, Natalie called back to me. You're coming to the baby shower next month, right? When is it? 3rd Saturday in December. My mom is hosting it. It'll be nice. Lots of family and friends. She smiled. You should bring a gift. Something useful, like a contribution to the college fund. That would be really meaningful. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. Time's running out. She laughed, but there was an edge to it. For all of us. I watched them drive away, Natalie still talking, Colin nodding along. Then I got in my car and sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app, typing quickly. Doctor confirmed early April conception, matches retreat photo date, Colin away April 8 to 29, conception window April 4 to 12, based on LMP. Colin not home, I stared at the notes, then added one more line. Need lab type information, I put the phone away and started the car. The pieces were coming together. Slowly, carefully, but they were coming together. And when they did, Natalie's perfect plan was going to fall apart. I sat in my office late that evening, the house dark except for the desk lamp. My notebook was open in front of me, pages filled with dates and notes and questions. The timeline was clear now, too clear. Colin had left for his logistics trip on April 8th. The retreat photo was dated April 10th. Natalie's last menstrual period, according to her medical records, was April 4th, which meant ovulation would have been around April 18th, give or take a few days. Right in the middle of Colin's 3-week absence, I opened my laptop and pulled up the photos Colin had posted on social media during his trip. April 10th, a blurry selfie at a hotel in Kansas City. April 15th, a picture of a warehouse loading dock in Oklahoma. April 22nd, complaints about the food at a truck stop in Missouri. He had been hundreds of miles away, moving from city to city, while Natalie was home alone. Or not alone. I looked at the retreat photo again, the one I had photographed with my phone when I visited their townhouse. Natalie and the tall man with dark hair, his arm around her shoulders. Casual, comfortable, familiar. Derek, she had called him. The coworker who was useless now, who had been flaking on everything since he got back from his trip last month. She had said his name at the clinic without thinking, annoyed about a work report. I opened a search engine and typed Derek Collins Logistics Company. Nothing useful came up. I tried Derek Training Department Corporate and got dozens of LinkedIn profiles. I scrolled through them, looking for anyone who matched the description. There, Derek Collins, Corporate Training Specialist. Logistics company that matched Natalie's employer. The profile photo showed the same man from the retreat, same easy smile, same dark hair. Age 35, based in the same city. His profile mentioned leading training retreats and team building events. I sat back, staring at the screen. There he was. The man in the photo, the man at the retreat, the man who had been there when Colin was away. I could not prove anything yet. Being at the same retreat did not mean anything happened, but the pattern was there, clear as daylight. Opportunity, timeline, and now a name. I created a new document and started writing everything down in order, like I used to do for case reports. Dates, locations, people, evidence, the retreat, Colin's trip, the conception window, the medical records, Derek's name and profile. I was not building a case to present. Not yet. I was building a structure so that if the truth came out, I would be ready. So that if a paternity test was needed, I would have the documentation to support it. My phone buzzed. A text from Marilyn. Draft trust ready for review. Can you come by tomorrow morning? I texted back. 10 a.m.? Perfect. See you then. I closed the laptop and looked around my small office. File cabinets full of old cases. Bookshelves full of investigation manuals and legal references. This was my territory. This was where I worked best. Not in fancy restaurants or pristine townhouses, but here, where facts mattered more than appearances. I thought about Colin, about how he had looked at the clinic, tired, worried, trying so hard to keep Natalie happy. Did he suspect anything? Did he have any doubts? Or was he so caught up in trying to be a good husband that he could not see what was happening right in front of him? I did not know, and I could not ask him, not without proof, not without being sure. So I would keep gathering evidence, keep building the structure, keep preparing for the moment when the truth could not be hidden anymore. And then I would let the facts speak for themselves. Marilyn's office felt colder the next morning, or maybe it was just the weight of what we were about to finalize. She had the trust documents laid out on her desk, several pages thick, with colored tabs marking places I needed to review. I've drafted everything according to what we discussed, she said, handing me the first section. The trust is structured as a living trust, which means it takes effect immediately. You transfer your assets into it now, and you maintain control as the trustee during your lifetime. I read through the opening pages. Legal language, precise and formal, but clear enough. And after I'm gone? The terms you specified kick in. All assets are distributed to your confirmed biological descendants. I've included a specific clause about biological grandchildren, with a paternity verification requirement if there's any dispute or reasonable doubt. What counts as reasonable doubt? Medical evidence, documented timeline discrepancies, statements from involved parties, or a formal challenge by an interested party, which in this case would be you or Colin. If doubt is raised, the trust requires a paternity test before any distribution. Refusal to take the test results in automatic forfeiture. I flipped to the relevant section. There it was, in plain language. The trustee may require genetic testing to verify biological relationships before distribution of assets. Failure to comply with such testing within 30 days of request shall result in forfeiture of any claimed interest. Can they challenge this in court? They can try. But trusts like this are upheld regularly, especially when there's documented reason for the requirement. You're not discriminating arbitrarily, you're ensuring biological accuracy, which is legitimate when defining heirs. I kept reading. The next section detailed what happened if the child was proven not to be Colin's biological offspring. In that case, the assets would revert to a secondary beneficiary, which I had designated as Colin himself, along with a small charitable donation. So, if the baby isn't Colin's, Colin still inherits? Correct. You're not punishing your son, you're just making sure Natalie and a child that isn't related to you don't benefit from fraud. That was exactly what I wanted. I signed each page where Marilyn indicated, my hand steady. When I finished, she gathered the documents and placed them in a folder. This is now active. Your assets are in the trust. Any attempt to pressure you into changing it, any attempt to claim inheritance without meeting the terms, will fail. She looked at me directly. But Reid, you need to understand something. If this goes to paternity testing, your relationship with Colin may not survive it. I know. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Colin at the clinic, holding Natalie's hand, looking tired and trapped. I thought about the way he never defended me anymore, never questioned her, never stood up for anything except keeping her happy. I'm prepared to know the truth, I said, whatever that costs. Marilyn nodded. Then we're done here. Keep a copy of these documents somewhere safe. And Reid, be ready. When this comes out, it's going to get ugly. I drove straight to the courthouse records office after leaving Marilyn's office. I needed more information, more context about how these situations typically unfolded. The same clerk from before recognized me. Back again? You writing a book or something? Just thorough, I said. She led me to the same computer terminal. I searched for cases involving disputed paternity and inheritance trusts, looking for patterns in how courts handled them. What I found was consistent. When trusts required biological verification and parties refused testing, courts sided with the trust language almost every time. One case summary stood out. A grandfather had created a trust requiring paternity testing for all claimed grandchildren. One daughter-in-law refused, calling it insulting and degrading. She sued to have the requirement removed. The court denied her motion, stating that the trust creator had the right to define beneficiaries using any legal criteria, including biological relationship. The daughter-in-law eventually agreed to testing. The child was not biologically related to her husband. The inheritance went elsewhere. I photographed the case number and summary, adding it to my growing file. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun was weak and cold. I sat in my car, thinking about the next steps. The trust was in place. The legal structure was solid. Now I just had to wait. Wait for the baby to be born. Wait for the medical facts to emerge. Wait for the moment when questions could be asked without seeming paranoid or cruel. My phone buzzed. A message in the family group chat. Natalie had posted a photo of the nursery, fully decorated now. Blue walls, white furniture, stuffed animals arranged on shelves. The caption read, "Ready for our little man? Just a few more weeks." Colin had replied with a heart emoji. I stared at the photo, at the perfect nursery for a baby that might not be his. At the life Natalie had built on lies and pressure and manipulation, and I felt nothing but cold certainty that I was doing the right thing. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange, quiet tension. Natalie called twice, asking again about my estate planning. Both times I told her it was handled, that everything was in order. She pressed for details, but I kept my answers vague. "You'll see when the time comes," I said. That seemed to satisfy her, or at least make her think she had won. Colin called once, late at night, his voice tired. "Hey, Dad, just checking in. You okay?" "I'm fine. How are you?" "Exhausted. Natalie's in full nesting mode. She has me rearranging furniture every other day." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "I'll be glad when the baby's here and things calm down." I wanted to tell him things were not going to calm down, that they were going to explode. But I just said, "Get some rest, son." "Yeah. Hey, Natalie wanted me to ask if you finalized your will stuff." There it was. She was using him to check on me, to make sure I had done what she wanted. "It's done. Everything's in place." "Good. That's good. She'll be relieved." He paused. "Dad, I know she can be pushy sometimes, but she just wants to make sure our son is taken care of. You understand, right?" "I understand more than you think." After he hung up, I sat in my dark living room, staring at nothing. Colin had no idea what was coming. No idea that his wife had been lying to him, manipulating both of us, building a future on fraud. Part of me wanted to tell him now, to warn him. But without proof, it would just be accusations. He would side with her, defend her, maybe cut me off entirely. I needed to wait for the medical facts, for the undeniable truth. So I waited. On a cold morning in mid-December, my phone rang. Colin, his voice shaking. "Dad, we're at the hospital. They're starting the delivery process today. Natalie's pressure was high at the appointment, so the doctor wants to move forward now." My heart started pounding. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Okay, 3rd floor maternity ward, room 312. I grabbed my jacket and keys, my mind racing. This was it, the moment everything would start to unravel. I drove to the hospital on autopilot, parking in the massive garage, taking the elevator to the 3rd floor. The maternity ward was busy, nurses moving quickly between rooms, monitors beeping, the occasional cry of a newborn. I found room 312 and knocked. Colin opened the door. He looked pale, stressed. "Hey, Dad. Thanks for coming." Inside, Natalie was in the hospital bed, monitors attached to her belly, an IV in her arm. She looked annoyed more than scared. "Finally," she said when she saw me. "Colin, go get me more ice chips. This is taking forever." Colin left immediately. I stood near the door, not sure where to put myself. "They're starting the medication soon," Natalie said. "Doctor says it could take hours, or it could go fast. Either way, by tonight you'll have a grandson." She smiled, that same confident smile. "And then we can finalize all that estate stuff properly." "It's already finalized. I mean, make sure it's all going to him, to our son." "That depends." Her smile faded. "Depends on what?" "On what the medical records show." She stared at me, her eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about?" Before I could answer, Colin came back with ice chips. Dr. Alvarez followed him in, reviewing a chart. "All right, Natalie, we're going to start the Pitocin now. This will help get contractions going. We'll monitor you closely and see how things progress." The next few hours were a blur of waiting. Nurses came and went. Monitors beeped and adjusted. Natalie's contractions started, slow at first, then stronger. Colin stayed by her side, holding her hand while I sat in the corner, watching, waiting. Around 6 in the evening, things intensified. Natalie's contractions were close together now, her face twisted in discomfort. Dr. Alvarez checked her progress and nodded. "You're ready. Let's get you to delivery." They wheeled her out, Colin following. I stayed in the waiting area, pacing. Other families sat around me, excited, nervous, normal. I felt like I was watching from outside my own life. An hour later, Colin appeared in the doorway, tears in his eyes, his phone in his hand. "It's a boy," he said, his voice shaking. "He's here. He's perfect." I stood up. "That's good. That's really good." "Do you want to see him? They're cleaning him up now, but you can come meet him." I followed Colin down the hallway to the recovery room. Natalie was propped up in bed, exhausted, her hair plastered to her forehead. In her arms was a small bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. "Reid," she said, her voice hoarse, "come meet your grandson." I walked closer, looking down at the tiny face. The baby's eyes were closed, his little mouth moving slightly. He was red and wrinkled and small, and he had a full head of dark hair. I looked at Colin. Blonde hair, like mine, like his mother's. Then at Natalie. Light brown hair, dark hair, like the man in the retreat photo. I did not say anything. I just looked at the baby, at the medical bracelet on his tiny wrist, at the monitors still beeping around Natalie. Dr. Alvarez came in, making notes on a tablet. "Everything went well. Baby's weight is good. Apgar scores are excellent. We'll do the standard newborn screening tomorrow morning." She glanced at her chart. "I do need to note something for the records. The baby's apparent phenotype doesn't match the expected parental combination based on the information we have. I'm required to document that." Natalie's face went white. "What does that mean?" "It means there are some unexpected characteristics that may warrant follow-up genetic screening. It's standard procedure when there are inconsistencies." "What inconsistencies?" Colin asked, confused. Dr. Alvarez looked uncomfortable. "Lab-type markers, primarily, and a few other factors. I'd recommend a paternity test, just to be thorough." The room went silent. "A paternity test?" Natalie's voice was sharp. "Are you implying something?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm following medical protocol. When there are markers that don't align, we document it and recommend verification. It protects everyone." Colin looked at me, then at Natalie, then at the baby. "I don't understand. What markers?" Dr. Alvarez hesitated. "I'd prefer to discuss this in private with you and Natalie." "No," I said quietly. "Discuss it now." Everyone turned to look at me. "Reid, what are you doing?" Natalie asked, her voice rising. I looked at Dr. Alvarez. "The baby has dark hair. Both parents have light hair. The lab-type markers don't match expected inheritance patterns. And the conception date falls during a period when Colin was out of town for 3 weeks." Colin's face went pale. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you were in Kansas City and Oklahoma and Missouri for 3 weeks in April. And that's when this baby was conceived. I'm talking about the corporate retreat where Natalie was photographed with Derek Collins on April 10th. I'm talking about the timeline that doesn't add up." Natalie started crying, loud, gasping sobs. "How dare you? How dare you do this now? I just had a baby." "You had a baby," I said calmly. "The question is whose baby it is." Dr. Alvarez stepped forward. "Mr. Trainer, I understand emotions are high, but based on the medical evidence, Mr. Reid has raised legitimate questions that should be addressed through proper testing." "Colin, make him leave!" Natalie screamed. "Make him leave right now!" But Colin was just standing there, staring at the baby, his face crumbling. "Is it true?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Were you with Derek in April?" Natalie kept crying, but she did not answer. "Were you?" Colin's voice was louder now, shaking. "It was a mistake," Natalie finally said through her tears. "It didn't mean anything. I didn't think—" "You didn't think what?" Colin's voice cracked. "That I'd find out? That it mattered?" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. "I've created a living trust for my estate. It specifies that only confirmed biological grandchildren inherit. If you want to claim this child is my grandson, we'll need a paternity test. If you refuse, the trust terms are clear. No test, no inheritance." Natalie's tears stopped abruptly. Her face twisted with rage. "You planned this. Yeah, you set us up." "I protected myself from fraud. There's a difference." Dr. Alvarez cleared her throat. "I'm going to recommend that hospital administration be involved in this conversation, and I'm formally noting in the records that a paternity test is medically advisable." She looked at Colin. "I'm sorry you're going through this." She left the room. The silence that followed was suffocating. Colin was still staring at the baby, tears running down his face. "Is he mine?" he asked Natalie. "Just tell me the truth. Is he mine?" Natalie looked away. "I don't know." Colin's legs seemed to give out. He sat down hard in the chair next to the bed, his head in his hands. I walked to the door, then stopped. The trust is in place. My lawyer has all the documentation. If you want to challenge it, you'll need to take the test. If you refuse, the terms are final." "You're a monster," Natalie hissed. "You're a cruel, heartless monster." "No," I said quietly. "I'm just someone who refuses to be used." I walked out of the room, past the nurse's station, past the other families with their normal, happy moments. I took the elevator down to the parking garage and sat in my car, my hands shaking for the first time all day. I had done it. I had protected myself, protected my estate, protected the truth. But the look on Colin's face would haunt me forever. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene in the hospital room over and over. Natalie's rage, Colin's tears, the baby with dark hair that did not match either of them. My phone was silent. No calls, no texts. I checked it every few minutes anyway, knowing nothing would be there. Around dawn, I got up and made coffee, sitting at the kitchen table in the dim morning light. The house felt emptier than usual, the silence heavier. At 8, my phone finally buzzed. A text from Marilyn. "Heard from Hospital Legal. They're proceeding with paternity testing as medically recommended. Should have results in 48 to 72 hours. Call me when you're ready to talk." I set the phone down. 48 to 72 hours. 2 to 3 days before the truth became official. Undeniable. Another buzz. This time, Colin. "We need to talk. Can I come by?" I stared at the message, my chest tight. "Yes. When?" "This morning. 10 a.m.? Okay." I spent the next hour cleaning up the house, not because it needed it, but because I needed something to do with my hands. I washed dishes, straightened papers, vacuumed the living room, normal tasks that felt surreal under the circumstances. At exactly 10, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I opened the door before Colin could knock. He looked terrible. Eyes red and swollen, face drawn, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. He walked past me without saying anything and sat down on the couch, his head in his hands. I sat in the chair across from him, waiting. "The test is today," he finally said. "Hospital is doing it this morning. Dr. Alvarez said results should be back by Friday." "Good. Good?" Colin looked up at me, his eyes blazing. "That's all you have to say? Good? What do you want me to say?" "I want you to explain why you ambushed us in the hospital, why you couldn't have just talked to me privately, why you had to humiliate Natalie like that." "I didn't humiliate her. She humiliated herself by lying." "You don't know that she lied. Maybe the dates are just wrong. Maybe the doctors made a mistake about the timeline." I pulled out my notebook, the one I had been keeping for weeks. I opened it to the page with the timeline and slid it across the coffee table. April 4th, Natalie's last menstrual period, according to her medical records. April 8th, you left for your 3-week logistics trip. April 10th, the corporate retreat where she was photographed with Derek Collins. April 18th, approximate ovulation date. April 29th, you came home. The baby was conceived while you were gone, Colin. He stared at the notebook, his hands shaking. "You investigated this? You investigated your own family?" I protected myself from fraud. "She's my wife. That baby is..." His voice broke. "That baby might be my son. Or he might be Derek Collins' son. And if he is, Natalie tried to make me pay for another man's child. She tried to guilt me, pressure me, humiliate me into giving up everything I've worked for a lie." Colin stood up, pacing. "Even if she made a mistake, even if she was with Derek, that doesn't mean you had to be so cruel about it. You could have talked to me. You could have given me a chance to handle this privately. When would you have listened? When Natalie was pressuring me to sign over my estate? When you sat there at dinner and said nothing while she called me useless? When you let her treat me like an ATM for months? That's not fair, isn't it?" I leaned forward. "You chose her side every single time, Colin. Every time she insulted me, every time she pushed me, you said nothing. You let her run over both of us. So no, I didn't come to you privately, because you stopped being on my side a long time ago." He stopped pacing, tears running down his face. "I'm your son. Then act like it. Stop letting her control everything. Stop hiding from the truth." We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, a car drove past, normal sounds of a normal morning in a world that felt nothing like normal. "The trust," Colin finally said. "Is it really that absolute? If the baby isn't mine, he gets nothing?" "Not from me. The trust specifies biological grandchildren. If he's not biologically related to you, he's not my grandchild." "That's so cold." "It's honest. I'm not going to pretend biology doesn't matter when it comes to inheritance. And I'm not going to reward Natalie for lying." Colin wiped his eyes. "What if he is mine? What if the test shows he's actually my son? Then the trust terms are met. He'll inherit when I'm gone, under conditions that protect him from being used by his mother the way she tried to use me. What conditions? Education trusts, milestone distributions, protections that make sure the money is actually for him, not for her shopping trips or controlling him. Colin's face crumbled again. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle any of this. For the first time since he arrived, I felt a flicker of sympathy. He looked lost, broken, like the kid who used to come to me with problems he could not solve on his own. Wait for the test results, I said more gently. Then you'll know what you're dealing with. Then you can make decisions based on truth, not assumptions. And what if he's not mine? What do I do then? That's up to you. But whatever you decide, don't let Natalie make the decision for you, not this time. He nodded slowly, then stood up. I should go. I need to get back to the hospital. I walked him to the door. He paused on the porch, looking back at me. Dad, I know you think I abandoned you, that I chose her over you, but I was just trying to keep everyone happy. I didn't know how to stand up to her without losing everything. You can't keep everyone happy, son. Sometimes you have to choose truth over peace. He nodded again and walked to his car. I watched him drive away, then went back inside. The house was silent again. I sat down at the kitchen table, my coffee cold now, and waited for Friday. Friday morning came gray and cold. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat by the phone. Marilyn had texted the night before that results would be available by noon and that the hospital would contact Colin first. At 11:30, my phone rang. Marilyn. Hospital just released the results to Colin. Are you sitting down? Tell me. Negative. The baby is not Colin's biological child. Probability of paternity is less than 1%. I closed my eyes, feeling no triumph, no satisfaction, just a heavy, hollow certainty that I had been right. What happens now? Colin has been notified. Hospital administration is documenting everything. As for your trust, the terms are automatically enforced. The child is not your biological grandchild, so he has no claim to your estate. Natalie can try to challenge it, but she won't win. I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat at my kitchen table, waiting. 2 hours later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Colin standing there, his face empty, hollow. In his hand was a piece of paper. The test results. You were right, he said flatly. He's not mine. I stepped aside and he walked in. He sat on the couch, still holding the paper, staring at it. Natalie admitted everything. Derek Collins is the father. She knew the whole time. She was going to let me raise him as mine, let you leave your estate to him, and never tell anyone. I'm sorry, Colin. Are you? You got what you wanted? You protected your money. I protected the truth. There's a difference. He crumpled the paper in his fist. She's filing for separation, moving back to her mother's place, taking the baby. Derek doesn't want anything to do with either of them. He laughed, bitter and broken. So now I lose everything in 1 week. You never lost my respect. Didn't I? You investigated me. You set traps. You waited until the worst possible moment to drop the bomb. I sat down across from him. I gave you every chance to see the truth yourself. You chose not to see it. Because I loved her. Because I wanted to believe we were building something real. You were building something real, just not with an honest person. Colin threw the crumpled paper at me. It bounced off my chest. I hate that you were right. I hate that I have to thank you for saving me from my own stupid choices. You don't have to thank me. Then what do you want from me, Dad? I picked up the paper, smoothing it out. The results were printed in clear black letters. Probability of paternity, 0.02%. Not Colin's son, not my grandson. The point is that you know the truth now, and you can build a real life based on truth, not lies. You can start over. He sat there for a long time, not speaking. Finally, he looked up at me. Your trust. Does it cut me out too? No. You're still my son. The trust lists you as the primary beneficiary if there are no confirmed biological grandchildren. Everything goes to you. His eyes widened. Everything? Everything. On the condition that you use it wisely, that you don't let anyone manipulate you into giving it away. Tears started rolling down his face. I don't deserve that. I let her treat you like garbage. I didn't defend you. You made mistakes. People do. The question is what you do next. He wiped his eyes. What if I can't fix this? We don't have to fix everything today. We just have to not make it worse. He stood up. I should go. I have a lot to figure out. You know where I am. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here. He walked to the door, then stopped. Dad? I'm sorry. For all of it. I know, son. So am I. After he left, I sat alone in the darkening house. No more pressure from Natalie, no more manipulation, no more lies demanding my estate for a child that was never mine. I had won. The trust was secure. The truth was exposed. I walked to my office and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was the notebook, the timeline, the evidence. I looked at it for a moment, then closed the drawer. It was over. The case was closed. I remembered Natalie's face in that hospital room, the shock when her lies collapsed, the rage when she realized she could not manipulate me anymore, the moment when she understood that I had seen through her all along. That memory steadied me. I had done the right thing. Painful, yes. Brutal, maybe. But right. I would not apologize for refusing to be used, would not apologize for protecting what I had earned, would not apologize for demanding truth. Colin would heal. He would move on. He would build a better life without Natalie's poison. And someday, maybe he would understand that real love does not need lies to survive. I stood up, turned on the lights, and made myself dinner. Life continued. Truth had won, and that would have to be enough.